Hey internets, it's Jake from Mini Terrain Domain, and this is the Lady Vantage, Dawnbringers, Ghosts of Saltmarsh, Season 3, Episode 18, happening every Thursday night right here on twitch.tv/Mini Terrain Domain. Thank you for joining us, everybody. We are excited to have everybody back with us again. Megan's voice is starting to sound a little bit more like it should. We're glad that you're feeling better, Megan. So yeah, we have all of the Dawnbringers back with us again tonight, and we are in a few moments going to pick up where we left off just last week after some fiery explosions, near death, and some innocent bystanders getting caught in the fray. Wherever the Dawnbringers go, they bring trouble. So, first off, for people that may be joining us for the first time, I've been very pleased to see, since we returned in the new year, that with each game session, there always seems to be at least 1, 2, or 3 or more new people showing up. So, however you come to us, welcome. And we hope you'll stick around and enjoy what you see. You may hear talk. I forget which game it was recently that we had. It was on the Choke game on Sunday. Somebody was asking, what are all those devil faces and the numbers? People were asking about the domain dice. Domain dice are something unique to Mini Terrain Domain. The concept isn't unique. A lot of streamers use variations of Advantage and Divine Blessings and whatnot. I stole the inspiration from Castle Mac and Scraticus, actually. And we turned it into domain dice, and it's our way of allowing you, the audience, to have a bit of a say in what happens. And Dawnbringers is actually the birthplace of the domain dice. It originated with this stream. So what domain dice are is for every $5 tip or 500-bit cheer in the chat, or for subscriptions, resubscriptions, and raids, we award domain dice. Those domain dice are explained in the crawl at the bottom and in the chat message that popped up when Mike the Piper exclaimed, "By the gods, 105 domain dice." I think in our Cholt game they have 17, so he may be a little bit he's a little bit envious, I think. Anyway, what the domain dice do is, for one domain dice, they can reroll a d20. And it used to be take the new roll, but there's so many, you can just spend them. Reroll till you get what you want. There's 106 domain dice there. And then 2 domain dice to cause me to reroll. 3 domain dice lets them spend some hit dice outside of healing, outside of rests. 4 domain dice will turn a failed death save into a successful death save, but it will cost you 8 domain dice if that's a critical fail. And 5 domain dice used very recently by Thorgarn against a heavy crossbow wielding assassin's thug to turn a hit into a super crit, which is a automatic double max damage critical hit. Huge thank you to everybody who has subscribed, tipped, cheered, resubscribed, raids, all that stuff that has contributed to this. We appreciate that support. And what you're looking at keeps bringing it up every time we talk about domain dice. I still haven't found a way that I'm comfortable with creating a variation on that is domain dice for the DM. I'll figure it out eventually because people are asking for it, but it feels kind of dirty. Like, I'm just going to cancel that domain dice, or I'm going to spend 5 domain dice and I'm going to kill your character. I wouldn't do that. Anyway, real quick, Take a look at the bottom of the overlay, and you'll see some cool names there. Jasper's Game Day. We're proud to be partnered with them. You can type !Jasper for a link to donate directly to this wonderful charity organization that helps to fund crisis centers, suicide crisis centers around the country. Also to that end, you can check out Initiative Coffee Company. Type !Coffee in the chat, and you will be shown a link to purchase Metade roast coffee, a Brazilian and Peruvian blend of coffee that is really wonderfully delicious. And $3 of every purchase goes to benefit Jasper's Game Day. And finally, D&D Beyond. Thank you, D&D Beyond, for giving us insider access and powering the streams. I run all of my D&D streams with multiple tabs of D&D Beyond open, and you can mouse over the screen on your computer and see who the characters are and take a look at how they're doing. And you know what? I think I forgot to say save configuration because it's showing the Legends and Legacies group right now. And it should take just a minute, and it should show up with the correct one. I'm like, why does somebody only have 11 hit points? That's because they just got to level 2 in that campaign. So it should show up in a moment. There we go. A whole lot of red from our characters. They were devastated, as you'll hear in the recap in a moment. The last thing that I want to say, and I will always be sure to mention this at the start of every stream, is you are important. You matter. And you are loved. Your presence on this earth makes a difference whether or not you believe it. You don't have to believe it, but it's true. And if you are struggling with that, there are resources available to you that we urge you to take advantage of. Mental health is incredibly important. And I myself, last year, just recently started seeing a therapist, and it has helped me incredibly with anxiety and depression. So nothing to be ashamed with that. But if you do find yourself struggling, you can type !help in the chat, and some resources, a list of resources will pop up. Somebody else might get to it before I did. Thank you, Jeremy. Mike tried, got it reversed. I'm going to change that. I'll put a keyword in so that you can just type the word help. But you will see that the National Suicide Lifeline for the United States pops up, and that number is 1-800-273-TALK. That's 1-800-273-8255. And you can talk to a trained counselor there. If you are a military veteran, you can press 1 after you dial that number, and a veteran specialist will be available to talk with you. Or if you'd rather text, you can text 741-741. In Canada, you can reach the crisis text line by texting the word connect for English or parley for French to 686-868. Or you can reach the Canadian Suicide Prevention Services line, available in French or English, at 1-833-456-4566. There is also a clickable link there for opencounseling.com/suicide-hotlines. And if you follow that link, there are resources for a number of countries around the world if you are not in the US and Canada. Please, if you need help, reach out. Reach out to somebody. Use those resources. All right. Now, I think I got through those announcements in record time. We are going to play some Dungeons and Dragons. So, in our recent events here in Saltmarsh, try as they might, for the last several sessions, these characters have not been able to finish out the day. Something keeps getting in their way. But they have recently had met up at a local establishment called the Snapping Line, run by a young woman by the name of Hannah Rist. She refused to take the Dawnbringers' money for the work they had done recently in the town, and provided them with a wonderful array of food and beverage in the form of in the form of claw wine, a fish alcohol that didn't sit so well with certain dwarves. But they were talking to their friend Captain Dervish and the cook from the ship, who had recently had an assassination attempt on him from an organization that was identified as the Scarlet Brotherhood. During the course of their meal and their discussion, Captain Stark decided it was best if he take the party to meet up with his friend, the Lady Vantage. And he was a little bit surprised that you had all already interacted with her, but decided he was going to take you to see her. As you left the snapping line, everybody was so full from the meal, so satisfied, and just walking out into the evening air, nobody noticed the assassin standing on the building across the street, who then hurled something in their direction, and the front of the snapping line exploded in fire, and an assassin and her thugs, 5 of them, showed up. One of them, a martial arts adept, decided it was a good idea to go running and punching and kicking Fig, and did a little bit of damage, but also hurt his hands and feet. But not long after that was taken out. The Dawnbringers, in true Dawnbringer fashion, were able to put an end to the situation, although one person did get away. Griveth provided chase, but this person did get away. And in another explosive fireball, when surrounded, the assassin threw what was now recognized to be the remaining beads of a necklace of fireballs at their feet. As the explosion resounded, they realized that the assassin had escaped. She was nowhere to be found. A single singed piece of red silk floated to the ground. And at that moment, they realized, though he had initiated the fight with a spell cast in the direction of the assassin, Captain Dervish was nowhere to be found during the fight. In the initial explosion, 2 civilians were killed, and Roland, the cook, was killed. As we join the Dawnbringers, in this moment that Cantriel and Talmud in particular, and maybe, I think Griveth was over dealing with the guy that had run away. I know Cantriel, Thorgarn, and Talmud were in the vicinity of, actually, I don't remember if Fig had run up. Fig may have kept his distance. But in that immediate area of effect from the second fireball, we're literally picking up at that moment that red silk, singed, is floating to the ground. There's confused cries all around. The front of the snapping line, the doors are blown in, part of the wall is blown in, and fire is quickly lapping at the dry wood that makes up this structure. You hear an alarm bell sounding somewhere, and there are at least 3 dead innocents, as well as the 3 or 4 actually dead thugs that are lying in the street. What would you like to do, Dawnbringers?
So I imagine the dwarves are still. I imagine the dwarves are still raging or coming out of it.
We can't hear you, V, if you're talking. No, so I don't know if you unplugged your cord or. Nope.
I'm gonna have to mime the whole rest of the session.
Can you hear us? Obviously, you can hear us if you're.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, there you go.
There we go. Zoom just changed the settings on me.
All right.
That was going to be interesting, miming the whole session.
Sorry, and I wasn't trying to cut you off, Ted, but I saw
No.
that V was trying to talk, and
So weird.
so
That
as
was really funny. She opened her mouth, and I heard Ted's voice. It was really, really disturbing for a second.
It's something we're working on for the castle.
Yeah, we worked on it all week. It's pretty awesome.
Perfect.
Go ahead, V.
Cantriel would absolutely be searching the bodies of the thugs to see if there are any further clues, because she sees that red and she's seeing red as a result.
All right, so Cantriel moves over to begin inspecting the bodies. Go ahead and give me an investigation check as you're doing that. Thorgarn, what were you saying?
So I imagine, if the fight is literally just ended, we're the dwarves, or at least Thorgarn, is expending those last moments of the rage, and he is going to go from this just overexcited, his ancestor spirits are still out, to like complete and utter realization that the dead are around him, both the civilians that he probably didn't see. I mean, he acknowledged that Roland had died in the beginning, which is kind of why he was so agitated. But he's trying to be a better person, and out and out killing is not something he's trying to do. And it doesn't take much to realize that he was the one that decapitated that person. So he's kind of going to be distraught over the whole thing and trying poorly to hide it.
Big sees. Did you say that there was some places, some of the buildings were on fire now? Because
The very front of the snapping line, the building that you came out of, is actually on fire right now.
So Fig is going to look for the closest source of water, rather whether that be a rain barrel or maybe even the shoreline, if that's close enough.
The shoreline is actually quite a ways away, but you would absolutely see rain barrels nearby. Of course, it's taking a minute for my map to load. Where you are in town, let's see. Yeah, so there's definitely a rain barrel within probably like 30 feet of the front of this. What is your intention?
I'm just reading here. I want to cast Control Water.
Excellent.
If I can direct the flow towards the burning building to hopefully quell some of this fire.
What's the range on Control Water?
It is 300 feet.
Okay, and you can move quite a bit of water, if I remember correctly.
I can move. I don't know.
Is it like 2 gallons per level or something?
I think it's more than that.
Yeah, you're doing different effects, so
we'll call this that you're essentially redirecting a flow. You're using water that's already there; it's not flowing. So these are going to be like 50-gallon rain barrels, and they're on each corner of the building. So I'll say that over the course of the next few minutes, you are able to stand in front of this building, and for the next few minutes, you're able to not only direct it and move it, but you're able to move it around. And over the course of the few minutes, the spell lasts for 10 minutes. You're losing a lot of the water, as it's turning to steam, But then there's another rain barrel, and you're able to just sort of reach over, grab this water, and so
I
excellent.
imagine that even if Fig has to like kick over the rain barrel to get it to flow, and then I imagine that he takes some of these gears that have a hole in them, and he makes them very large, and he puts them in. He throws them in almost like this serpentine looking. Puts them in different places above, going from the barrel to the fire, and so the water and the gears begin to turn, and the water just flows through the empty holes of these gears as the gears are turning, and it just almost like a conveyor belt of water going up and into the fire.
Take a point of inspiration for inventing the arcane clockwork fire hose. That's incredible. That's so much cooler than what I was describing. That's really cool. I love that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I would say that if somebody wants to do some artwork of that scene, I think that'd be
that would be fantastic. What about Talmud? What are you doing? Cantriel's over, almost angrily searching these bodies, flipping through their pockets and pouches, looking for something, anything, any clue. What did you end up rolling on investigation? Is that what that 22 is?
22. Yep. I got
Okay.
22.
So while she's doing that, what are you doing, Talmud?
So I think Talmud actually catches this sash as it's kind of still falling in the air, and the kind of orangey red of the embers that are kind of still burning on the ends of this singed piece of cloth kind of is like counter to the blue glow from his tattoos. And as they're kind of fading and the kind of fog is kind of retreating back into his eyes, he just kind of says, I'm going to hunt that fucking half-elf down, and I'm going to feed him his own ears. And he kind of takes the thing and starts stamping out the embers before he tucks it into his belt. And he turns around and finds Thorgarn. And he kind of walks over, and by the time he gets back to Thorgarn, the tattoos are completely faded, and he's almost stumbling, like he's dizzy. He kind of reaches out and puts a hand on Thorgarn to kind of steady himself. Ooh. Ooh. Everything's okay. It looks like, maybe.
No, things are definitely not okay.
Did you do that? He kind of kicks the head with his boot, just gently. Well done, Thorgarn. Well done. He claps him on the back.
It's not good to just kill.
Not good to kill what? One of these?
Kill it.
Oh, Thorgarn, come on now. They were sent to kill us. We were just doing self-defense, really.
But had we taken them alive, we could have gotten information. Had we left them
Maybe.
alive, we would not be as stained with their deaths, with their blood.
As you're saying this, Griveth is walking back from where he had given chase and lost the one that got away. Griveth, you hear Thorgarn saying this.
Thorgarn, sometimes it's just a necessary evil.
Cantriel have heard this too.
Yeah, it's all happening right within your vicinity.
Oh, then she's like, as she's going through pockets, how many times do we need to tell you that we can talk to them afterwards? Like she's just like in a state.
I've been in many wars and I've seen many people die that didn't deserve it, but
With that, I'll point towards Roland and the two commoners that are in the street.
Cantriel, as you're searching the bodies of these four thugs, including the one that was beheaded, You don't find anything of particular note, but with that investigation check, on the second body, you find something on the first body. And on the second body, you find the same thing. So by the time you're looking at the third body, you're almost looking for this. And then the fourth body, you see the same thing. And what that is, thank you, Shadow of Dragons, for the cheer. I want to make sure I don't forget these. Don't worry, my players won't let me forget when there's domain dice. But thank you so much. That is a domain die. And here is what you find. Each one of these thugs, and correction, that's 3, because one of them, not 4. One of, nope. See, math. 3 of them are thugs. One is the martial arts adept. One of the thugs got away. But all 4 of them have the same thing. In their pouch, containing a sparse, very small, like surprisingly small amount of coins. No gold to be found. Each one has a handful of silver and copper pieces, all of which are stamped with slightly different than what you're used to in the Sword Coast region. They have different markings on them that seem to be more for this region. Except each of their coin purses contains 5 platinum suns. The minting of Waterdeep. But it's not uncommon to see those platinum suns throughout the Sword Coast region. But it does stand out to you that 5 platinum suns from across the sea are on each one of these individuals. And that is the equivalent of 50 gold pieces. Fig, as you are finishing up successfully putting out this fire, you acted very quickly, and the door is blown off the front of the snapping line, and part of that wall is splintered and burned severely and will need to be replaced. The rest of it is just a bit of surface soot and ash, and everything else is just soaked in water from your quick actions. And as you're running out of water, as it's all burned away, or you're just moving water and wetting the wood, you hear from just inside the building the sound of some of broken wood shifting around, and you hear coughing. And out of the now darkened interior of the snapping line comes a slightly sodden from your firefighting efforts, and a bit blackened with soot, with some of it streaked down his face from the water. Captain Stark Dervish emerges, and he is helping her, leaning on one of his shoulders and limping. It looks like actually Dervish had been wearing that sort of loose white linen shirt, and one of the sleeves is completely ripped off, and you can see now that it is wrapped around Hannah Rist's leg and is already soaking with blood. It appears that Dervish had run back into the snapping line during the fight to check on Hannah, who had been pretty severely wounded, and he is just now emerging, helping her.
I think seeing that, immediately Fig would finish up the spell and rush over to take opposite side of the captain to help just take the weight totally off.
As
Are you two all right?
she gladly shifts her weight and shifts her position to turn it so she can look at the front of her establishment. And I kind of imagine, based on the flavoring you gave, as they're emerging and as you're moving to help her, magically these cogs that had formed this arcane fire hose are still sort of magically reassimilating with your form. And she sort of looks at them, and she looks over at the knocked over water barrels and the dripping facade and the lack of fire, and she just looks up at you, Fig. Did you do that?
The fire? No, I'm sorry. It was somebody else, but I thought to put it out because wood doesn't technically go with fire very well. I'm sorry I got your building all wet.
Well, I'm not. I don't know how you did it, but that's amazing. I think this is salvageable. Are you all right? And she begins looking around. Griveth, Cantriel, Thorgarn, it's like she's taking a roll. Talmud. Good. And then she spots Roland on the ground. Oh, no. I'm sorry. It's dark. And Dervish comes over there by where you are, Talmud and Thorgarn. And he kneels down next to the body of Roland. And he looks for a moment like you're just seeing this play of confused, conflicting emotions ripple across his face. And then he suddenly stands up and just sort of kicks at a piece of debris, cursing into the air. About this time, all of you hear the sounds of many feet approaching. And from both directions, you see several of the Saltmarsh regulars, the local militia, approaching. They wear their leather armor with the green embroidered symbol of the reed, the symbol of Saltmarsh, on their chests.
Talmud leans over to Griveth and kind of under his breath says, 10 gold pieces say they blame it on us.
And then you hear a familiar voice, that of Eleander Firebrand, that says, why am I not surprised to see the Dawnbringers in the midst of this?
Talmud raises an eyebrow towards Griveth and kind of thumbs.
Probably because someone wants to make it known that we're not welcome. Surprise!
Firebrand stops, looking down at the body of Roland and the two dead civilians. There's a couple more wounded. Other people, onlookers, have begun to come out, coming out of the other buildings. People are coming from further down the streets and are beginning to gawk at what's happening. Eleander
So Thorgarn at this point in time, like, he's not completely there. He wants to turn to Stark when he sees, the emotion and the loss and what have you, and he asks, was Roland, spiritual or religious in any way?
Not so much religious as he was superstitious. He was one of the good ones.
That he was.
You hear Eleander's voice. Again, the rest of you who may be paying attention. You lot have been in this town for just a few days. And I've already encountered you and your trouble more than I would care to. Somebody is going to have to explain what is happening, and you are all going to need to come back to the jailhouse with me.
Fine, pick one of the bodies, too, of these thugs. We can ask him some questions. Or her.
They're dead.
Doesn't matter, I can still get some information out of them.
It's better not to ask, really.
It's a thing.
Short and sweet. They attacked us.
But if you want to know by whom and by what and the whys of it, we might get some information. But you have 5 questions. Keep that in mind.
He seems a bit confused. Cantriel, you hear, with your ridiculous passive perception, you hear a commotion coming from further down the road. It starts with a sort of ripple moving from those furthest in the crowd down the street, and those murmurs passing quickly through. But then you also hear this sort of sound of multiple horses' hooves, followed by a distinct rattle and squeak of some sort of wagon or carriage. The crowd parts, and a very so dark that it almost looks black, especially in the waning light, though there is much torchlight in the area now. This nearly black carriage, drawn by 4 black horses. Though you can now see that it's actually blue, this carriage rolls up. It's barely stopped when the door opens, and a slender elven female steps out. Not me. Though she has hair of blue, and she wears a very simple, yet somehow still elegant, long skirts and a over jacket, a very fancy outfit. To be sure, she steps forward with confidence.
Talmud whispers, "Not another one."
This is the Lady Vantage. She walks directly up to Eleander Firebrand. My dear Eleander, these individuals will not be going with you tonight. I will be taking them with me. I'm sorry, but I fail to understand. I have spoken, Eleander. My word is final. The Dawnbringers are now under my watchful eye, and I will take responsibility for them. Eleander looks as though he wants to protest. He opens his mouth to say something, and all she does is cock her head slightly as if to say, "Do go on." All right. You. And he begins immediately barking orders, channeling his anger towards his soldiers, and begins barking orders for them to secure the perimeter and to secure the, start cleaning up the bodies take care of the civilians. The Lady Vantage looks at all of you. She looks down at the ground at the bodies. Do any of these belong to you?
Depends on if we get a bounty for them or not.
Always looking for payment for your services.
No, more just trying to find something to make it worthwhile.
None of these are your companions, then?
Well, not these thugs, but there were a few bystanders, yes.
Aleander will take care of them. The thugs' bodies will be disposed of in a less ceremonial way.
Griveth, do you want to tell the guard about the one that got away?
Oh yes.
Two,
So I go into the
actually.
story.
Griveth.
Oh, sorry.
Two.
The Lady Vantage says, Griveth. And she just subtly shakes her head.
Yes.
Say nothing. All of you, quickly, come with me.
Talmud, I see more feisty elves in our future.
Yes, she's standing right there. They have very good hearing, Griveth.
Keep it to yourself, puppy.
So I'm, head over towards the body that I decapitated and kind of pick up the head. Is this all you need, Cantriel?
As long as its mouth is intact, yes, we're good.
Thorgarn, you feel a firm but gentle hand on your shoulder. Thorgarn Spirit Cola, you will not need that. You can leave it. Come, quickly, all of you.
Did Cantriel tell us about the coin, or was it something that only she had?
So far, only
realized?
Cantriel is aware of that.
Okay.
And I assume you
coin?
collected all of those coins?
The coins, and yeah, I took all the coins and I quickly pocketed them and definitely haven't had time to tell everyone else.
Okay. So she begins to move towards, and she's... Talmud, Gedan. Please, Griveth. Figure 2, Prometheus, please, come. Addressing each of you by name. Do you all go to her carriage?
Yes.
Who's the first one to go in the carriage?
Of course, it's got to be Talmud.
You climb up. There is a wonderfully wrought iron step that provides easy climbing up into the carriage. And as you climb up and it shifts a little bit in your weight, you realize that there are two other people sitting in there. The carriage is very spacious on the inside. If you were worried that all of you would fit, you will fit. But the two figures that are in there is a rather almost timid looking young woman with dark hair. She appears to be half elven, and she wears a almost like it could be like a full length coat, but it almost looks like wizard robes, and is patterned in various shades of blue. And she holds a crossbow, a hand crossbow, pointed at the other figure, which is the fourth thug, bound, sitting inside the carriage. And the rest of you quickly see this as you all pile into the Lady Vantage's carriage.
After a moment, Talmud kind of realizes that there's actually a part of his beard that's still kind of smoldering, and it's kind of starting to fill the cabin with a little bit of smoke. He kind of reaches up and kind of puts that out and realizes he's probably getting blood and soot all over what I'm sure is an ornately decorated interior of this carriage. There's probably crushed velvet or something, and he's kind of like wanting to wipe a spot, but when he does, it just makes it worse because there's stuff all over his hands.
So when Thorgarn sees the captive, he begins to breathe heavy. He locks gaze, and for just a moment, he begins reaching for his weapon before none of you hear it. But Father Greffin behind him, kind of says that calm down, and he does and steps to the side. But he spends much of the time that we're in the wagon just staring daggers at this thug.
So, a couple of things. There are the 5 of you, Dervish, the Lady Vantage, the young half-elven woman, the thug, all of your armor and weapons. Dervish brought Hannah Wrist as well.
It's 10.
Yet none of you are crowded. The other thing is, Talmud, as you are sort of fussing with and almost looking embarrassed about the fact that, or whether or not it's embarrassed, maybe it's just slightly like, oops, that you're getting blood and stuff, dirt and everything everywhere. The Lady Vantage reaches a hand over to you, Talmud, and just sort of, again, in this calm, gentle but firm hand. Do not worry about it. And she just sort of makes a dismissive gesture, and all of you are immediately cleansed of all dirt and blood. And for the next few minutes, the carriage begins traveling through the streets towards who knows where.
So Griveth was a little bit embarrassed that, okay, he was chasing this guy down, this pretty rough guy, and he escaped me. Not only that, but these women apparently appear to have nabbed and captured this guy. So my ego is a little bruised, but also Griveth is swooning a little bit because he's in this enclosed carriage, and the scent of these elves is like intoxicating to him in like this enclosed area. He definitely has a fondness for elves. So the scent of the elves in this enclosed area is kind of intoxicating. He's actually swooning. He's blushing and swooning a little bit.
You would probably notice, though, that much like the first time you met the Lady Vantage, she doesn't really pay you that close of attention. Once you're settled in and she sort of dealt with everybody, she seems fixated on Fig. And
Fig is not so Fig is not paying attention at all. I don't think he's ever seen anything this fancy of a fabric. This I like the idea of it being like this crushed velvet, and so he's just kind of like, you see him like he just keeps like, as if he was like petting a dog or something. He just is kind of like rubbing his hand on this cushion, just totally enamored by this couch or by this seat.
would anybody say anything? The Lady Vantage does not speak directly to any of you once the carriage is moving. You're going to be riding for a few minutes at least. Would anybody break the silence, or would you all wait for her to say something?
Like I said, I'm staring murder at the thug.
I
I
think
think I would wait.
Talmud probably I don't think Talmud likes uncomfortable silences. He kind of strikes me as that kind of person. So I think after a moment when it was clear that nobody was going to say anything else, he'll kind of clear his throat. So it looks like maybe are you a part of the council in the city, or
I tend not to involve myself directly in the politics of the city of Saltmarsh.
well, you certainly have a tight leash on old Firebrand, that's for sure.
Oh, Elianda and I go back a long ways.
Oh. Yes, okay.
But I've been here for a long time, and I have my influence on the council, regardless of their position within the rather infantile politics of this location. We will discuss
really could have
this.
used your help a long time ago, honestly. The people of this town are they're not very kind to outsiders, it would seem.
Yeah, well, it would be... It might sadden you to know this, Talmud, but much of what is happening within the city of Saltmarsh, with the exception of recent activities, I'm afraid it's common amongst the people of most cities to be divided amongst their old traditional ways, conflicting with new ways of doing things. And you, well, Dawnbringers, you are a bit of a catalyst. We shall discuss this more. I had intended, as I said when I met you a few days ago, to invite you to my home for dinner. But it appears as though your presence here has escalated things much quicker than I expected. We have much to discuss. And do not worry, Paladin Langsmore. You need not be embarrassed that we were able to capture the one that got away. He practically ran into the carriage himself, as we were already en route.
I must have frightened him that badly.
Yes, I'm sure that was it. Figure 2, Prometheus. Were you wounded? Are you all right?
I am not at optimal operating capacity, but I am all right. As long as no one intends to hurt me for the next few hours.
I assure you, you are safe. While you are under my protection and under my roof, all of you will receive uninterrupted rest, and you will be taken care of. As you all are conversing, a few minutes goes by, and you begin to realize that the wagon, the carriage is moving up a winding path, and is sorry, that was an unfortunate. I saw your comment there, talking to Fig and mentioning that you will have rust. You notice that the carriage is sort of moving up this winding path, and after just a moment, it sort of takes a sharp right turn and comes to a stop. The moment that it comes to a stop, the Lady Vantage stands up herself and opens the door and holds it open for all of you. Don't worry, Muriel will bring our guest. Come, Welcome to my estate. As you all emerge from this carriage, you find yourselves standing in front of a massive manor. You've possibly seen big manor houses. You saw the mayor's house in Oakhurst, which for a small village was impressive. You'd been inside the big town hall in Blazing Dell. You were even in the great halls of Kundrakar, the dwarven stronghold of Durgadin the Black. But even the great hall of Kundrakar seems small in comparison to this mansion that you now stand in front of. Massive oak double doors are at the front of this place. The archway is 15 feet high. Great stone columns that rise up to a roof that is nearly 30 feet above just the entryway. Torches and lanterns burn at several of the windows and all around the area, illuminating that it extends for quite a ways in either direction as well. It sits up on a bluff. And as you turn and look in the direction you came, you can see below you the port town of Saltmarsh.
What is the quality of the stonework?
It is incredible quality. It is a blending of styles. You see dwarven stonework in the cornices and the a lot of the brickwork, but you also see that it is embellished with elven designs. You may recognize hints of human and even surprisingly orcish culture. It seems to blend many styles. There's as you get closer to the door, you would notice that these massive oak doors have been intricately carved with nature scenes. A very detailed forest embellishes each of these. The handles are look to be made of some sort of polished bone or ivory, and there are intricate halfling scrimshaw designs carved into them. As you approach the manor, the doors open with a gesture from the Lady Vantage, and you enter an incredible great hall. Everything you see about this place is massive. It looks like a giant could probably be at home in this place. It's so big. All of the archways are easily 15 feet high through all of the doors passing through. She leads you in and says, "We will have some time for you to question our guest at your leisure. Would you like to take advantage of the private baths? Would you like a meal?"
Oh, I believe that's a yes, please. And thank you to all of the above, quite frankly.
I could definitely eat. And if you have something that isn't made from fish, anything, to put in a cup, preferably something strong.
How
that
do
would be
you...
Great.
We have some of the finest dwarven ales.
Do you have Kirgin?
I have 14 barrels of Kirgin.
I don't think Thorgarn and I can carry that much each, but I'm willing to try.
While you are under my roof, Talmud and Thorgarn and the rest of you, My food is your food. My drink is your drink. I have private rooms for each of you. Cantriel, come. I will show you to your room in the east wing. Thorgarn and Talmud, Muriel, will show you to your rooms in the west wing. Griveth and Fig in the northern wing. You will be shown to your rooms. Please, do not be alarmed by my staff. They are perfectly safe. And she gestures again with her hand, and you hear what sounds like a bell, just like a ding, 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 ding. And very quickly, dressed very smartly in these iridescent blue tuxedo jackets with tails, 4 kobolds come scurrying around in unison, and they come up, and she speaks to them in Draconic. And does anybody besides Cantriel speak Draconic, remind me? Or is Cantriel the only one? So Cantriel, you would just hear as she says, "These are our guests. This is Figure 2, Prometheus, and Griveth. Please take them to their rooms in the northern wing." And they don't say a word. They just bow. And they each, 2 of them each, come to attend to each of you. And so all of you are shown to private chambers that Talmud and Thorgarn, your rooms, you find, are each designed and decorated in heavily dwarven motifs. All of the furniture seems to be of dwarven craft. All of the artwork in there, everything.
Is there a fireplace?
There is a magnificent fireplace. And each of your rooms, you find, has a within the room, you find that the Muriel shows you that there is a small spiral staircase that leads to a chamber under your room in which there is a naturally heated, hot spring fed bath. Griveth and Fig, you find similar as the kobolds lead you to your rooms, though not in Dwarven. You find that Griveth, your room is in a somewhat Spartan but human design with some artwork that you may or may not notice as well-known human artists. And your but you would also notice that the motif that runs through the artwork is that of waterfalls. The sign and symbology of Eldath is everywhere. Fig, your room looks like a study. There are drawings everywhere. There are several tomes, an entire wall that is nothing but bookcases, filled with arcane lore and legends. There's an entire shelf that is nothing but a variety of what looks to be potions, reagents, alchemical mixtures. Cantriel, the Lady Vantage herself, brings you to your room in the East Wing. I wanted you to be in the East Wing. This is where my room is. This is where this entire wing is primarily elven in design. But this room in particular I wanted you to have. And she opens the door, and you enter it, and you already have noticed in the hallways that there's heavy elven architectural influences and designs. Everything seems to be in what almost looks like marble columns, but you realize they're highly polished. Almost like the columns that run up the corner of the walls are actual trunks of trees that have been highly polished, and they have these inlaid golden and mithril and silver vinework and flowers laid into them. In one corner of the room is a very tall and elegant harp. In another side of the room, there are several lyres and lutes and shawms. This is a music-themed room. There is a peculiar instrument that is not seen very often anywhere. It has a look almost like a sideboard table. There's a small wooden bench in front of it. At the very front of it, of the console, there are dozens and dozens of ivory keys with ebony keys between them. She points to that and says, I had this brought over from Waterdeep. This is called a harpsichord. But there is one other reason that I wanted you to have this room besides the obvious musical influences. This is where your mother and father stayed when they visited with me. And that's where we're going to take our break.
You bastard!
Oh man.
So should we share some of the mental thought patterns with our audience here?
Yeah, but we'll take a minute before we go. Why don't you each what is your character thinking? And I say before we go, we're just taking a break. We're not leaving. We're just going to take a 10-minute break in a minute here. But yeah, let's go around and let's see. Since I dropped the bomb on Cantriel right there. Cantriel, what are your thoughts as the Lady Vantage shows you this room and then tells you this?
Well, first seeing the room and everything, it's reminding her of when she was off on her own and doing her barding thing in the Feywild and staying with different families, basically, and being their entertainer. So it's sort of a familiar place for her as a hired singer type of situation. But then hearing that her parents stayed here, her brain just went kaput. She's going to have questions, like lots of them.
All right. And then actually, unless I missed them, Spike, I think I got your subscription and I got Shadow of Dragon's Cheer, unless I missed something else. Spike saying that I owe you guys a couple of domain dice. Talmud, what are your thoughts upon seeing your room?
Well, what my thoughts are and what Talmud's thoughts are vastly different from one another. Talmud is gobsmacked. He's just over the moon right now. He's kind of running from thing to thing in his room. And he's kind of like looking at different things and touching all of the stonework. And his next agenda is to find that Girgan.
Talmud.
That's all he's concerned with.
One last thing. As you're running around looking at everything, I imagine as you stop and look back at the fireplace, you look up and you see that mounted on a plaque up above the fireplace is a warhammer that looks a lot like the warhammer that your great uncle Horm used. Thorgarn, what about you?
So, like Jeremy, Ted and Thorgarn are in, very different mindsets. Ted wants to know who the hell this person is, because to have all of this stuff, they might say they're elf, but I find that suspect. Thorgarn, his mindset is barely taking things in. He's feeling that he really needs to, get in touch with Moradin, possibly, cleanse off what's there, pray, and, see what he has to do to make proper amends. And I have some ideas and things that he might do given time.
Griveth, what are your thoughts? / Scotty.
Yeah, Griveth, Griveth and Fig are walking to the northern part of the manor, and he's thinking the day's running through his mind. It's like we got attacked, and like all this stuff is like happening so quickly. He's trying to slow his mind down and figure this out, but and at first he's thinking, okay, we've got to watch something. This is weird. Got to watch this. And Fig, he's worried about Fig because she can be very naive, and he's worried something could happen to him. And but then the servants show them their room, and that starts to fade from his mind. It's just like he comes in this room, and he's so comfortable with the room. Like it's like he just kind of lays down on the bed, and it's perfectly decorated for him. Like if they went in his mind and looked, what would be the kind of the perfect room for Griveth? Like this is what he would imagine. And it's almost like it's almost like a dream. Is he awake? Is he asleep? But he just instantly feels comfortable in this room and just kind of loses those thoughts of trepidation about where we are in the situation that we're in. So Griveth is just kind of laying there relaxing and thinking about this, our enchanting hostess.
You also, Griveth, would notice by the bedside, this room has all of the decorations as I described, but there is also a age-worn, age-yellowed parchment paper flyer with in an older style hand lettering and a sketch of a very familiar looking young human, shirtless and in an action pose, and below it in calligraphy it says, "The Knight of Smite." It appears to be one of Griveth's old flyers from his wrestling days in his younger days. Fig / Megan, what are your thoughts as you enter this room that is a study?
So, as the kobolds lead Fig into this room, you see Fig just kind of go in and stop for a moment and is silent. It doesn't quite walk into the doorway, but leans down and look at the kobolds. My friends have told me that I must ask before I touch things that are not mine. Are all of these books free for me to read?
The kobolds, for a moment, they look at each other, and then they look at you, and then one of them steps forward and says, in common, he looks up at you and he says, "The Lady Vantage has made available to you everything in this room, as if it is yours.
Very well. Thank you. And Fake is going to just kind of stand there a little bit in it until the kobolds leave. And then as soon as he hears the door just click shut, you just see him be just full on sprint towards these bookshelves and just take a finger and just begin sliding across the titles, and you see him just picking up book after book after book after book and just holding until he has a pile that's probably taller than he is.
And I will say that some of the books, though all of the books are in excellent shape, some of them do have that look of being very old tomes. And not just old tomes to you now, but you recognize that previously, before you spent many years submerged underwater, those tomes would have been old even then. And that is where we are going to take a 10-minute break. We'll come back in about 10 minutes, and we're going to see what the Lady Vantage has in store for the Dawnbringers and what kind of questions they have for her, as well as their special guest. So, thank you again to everybody who tuned in tonight and who is following along. Some new followers, subscriptions, bits, all that stuff. Keep them coming. And if you haven't already, and you're an Amazon Prime user, you get a free subscription every month that you can use for any Twitch channel. Consider using it for Mini Terrain Domain. But whether or not you do, be sure to hit that follow button so you know when we go live. But don't go anywhere unless it's to refresh your beverage or get some more snacks, because we are coming back in just 10 minutes. See you on the other side. And we're back. And right off the bat, thank you so much to Spike, who has become a channel champion. Many of you will find that you are the recipient of a gift subscription, courtesy of the 10 gift subscriptions that Spike dropped on the domain, which also means that you have earned an additional, I gotta remember how my domain dice work. You have earned an additional 10 domain dice, which means we'll get rid of that 105. You are now at 118 domain dice. And just as a reminder, before the hiatus for the holidays, our dice domain dice patron, Joey P, aka Chameleon Fam, had pushed us well up over 100 and challenged me because I didn't have enough graphics for that, and I now have enough graphics to cover up to 155 domain dice currently. So lots of room to hook these players up. So definitely thank you very much for showing the love there, Spike. We really appreciate it.
So is that an announcement that's, almost saying, challenging the viewers to see if they could push it up there? Because, we had to go into triple digits because you kind of threw down that challenge before. So
yeah, absolutely. If people want to view it as a challenge, I would love to be challenged to have to make graphics to go beyond 155 domain dice. It seems excessive, but given where you are in the campaign and level-wise, and this thing start increasing, I can only imagine, well, me, the Dungeon Master, I know you're going to need domain dice in the future. So stock them up, hoard them like a dragon hoards treasure. So right before the break, you all discovered that you were shown your private chambers, and they seem to be catered directly to you. Each of you finding familiar or in some cases very personal relics within your room. Thorgarn, I neglected to mention that in addition to the regular dwarven designs within your room, that the opposite side of the room of the fireplace is a shrine to Moradin. So all of you are given adequate time to clean yourselves, despite the prestidigitation that she did in the carriage. That seemed to have taken care of your clothing on the surface level, but you're still you smell like you've been traveling around the coastal town for a few days without a shower. So you have plenty of time to bathe, and you find that your rooms have fresh clothing, all of it of the finest quality. If you choose to wear the clothing, then you can mark a set of fine clothes in your inventory. And I'll leave it up to you to describe what you're wearing. If what do those fine clothes look like? Because they would be in the dwarven, human, or elven fashion. And Fig, though you do have that wonderful sort of moleskin robe with the greenish tin, you would find that there are other sets of clothing and robes and such that are available to you as well, should you choose to take advantage of that. All of you would also find that there are appropriate racks for placing your armor if you choose to not don your armor. That is entirely up to you. So eventually you all find that there's a gentle knock at your door, and the kobolds are summoning each of you that dinner is ready.
Approximately how much time passes from when they drop us off to come a knocking again?
About an hour.
So I'll have gone through, or Thorgarn will have gone through, a quick, cleansing in the steam bath below, get a fire coaxed, spend some time praying, and then he's gonna take the the holy symbol and put it in the fire, get it heated up, and he's gonna put it onto his arm to kind of like singe the flesh in the shape of the anvil, and kind of go through a second prayer, trying to figure out what he should have done or what he could have done differently earlier in the evening. And then he'll cool off the holy symbol, put on the nice outfit, wrap up the arm, leave the clothes on, but he'll keep the Dawnbringers bracer, but it'll all be wrapped up and barely visible when it's time to go out and see people.
Thorgarn, why don't you go ahead and make me a religion roll?
I will even roll my die with the anvil on it. Religion is not my strong suit. I'm going to go ahead and use one of those new domain dice, because that was a 2. That is better. It's a 18.
So during this mini ritual that you are performing, at the moment that you sear the symbol into the flesh of your arm, you hear faintly the sound of a hammer striking an anvil. And you catch a glimpse. You don't actually see this. You see it almost as if you're seeing a memory.
Okay.
From when you were in Kundrakar and you saw the aspects of Eldath and Moradin standing atop that waterfall across that small chasm where the bridge was near the exit.
Remember it fondly.
And what you see in response to your thoughts about what you could have done differently is, as the aspect of Moradin is standing there with his hands on his belt, and one hand is resting on his smithing hammer. You see his other hand shift over and pat his warhammer. And that's it.
Message received.
What do your fine clothes look like?
So they are reminiscent of the the things that is most important to him, the fire, the anvil, the whole smithing process. So they're kind of a charcoal black with just a bit of flame, dancing around the edges, and then the whole thing is edged in fine silver thread.
Since you're in the same wing there, Talmud, what do you do as you are preparing to leave, and tell us what your fine clothes, if you choose to wear them, look like?
So I think that there was a point whenever he, maybe reluctantly, perhaps even at the behest of someone else in the group, took a bath in the hot springs. I think there's probably a moment where he's kind of reclining in, this kind of shoulder deep hot water with the steam kind of rising up, and he's just kind of staring downward and is perfectly still and is perfectly quiet, and he's gazing into his own reflection, the look of his face kind of just staring back at himself, and he's trying very hard to study the face that he sees, because it's starting to grow less and less familiar to him, and he's concerned about losing the knowledge that this is actually his real face.
Make me a wisdom roll. I'm actually going to have you do this as a wisdom saving throw.
Okay. That's a 19 total.
As you're staring into the water, and you're in this rare moment for Talmud in particular, where you're barely moving, you're not speaking, the water ripples ever so slightly with the exhaling, but your breathing is calm and shallow, and you're staring into your reflection, and it ripples for a moment, and then again and again. And each time it ripples, just for a moment, the countenance of one of your ancestors ripples across, superimposed over your own face. But each time your own reflection shows in between, stronger and more visible. And the last image that you see, not superimposed over your face, but appearing over your shoulder. And you can almost hear the proud voice say, "I am bad luck." That face of everybody's favorite kobold. As Meepo appears. Do you dress in the fine clothes when it's time to go?
Yeah, I think so. At least most of what was provided. I imagine they're probably green, like this kind of like rich Kelly green and gold, and there's a lot of what we would see as Celtic style knotwork and stuff on them. And he definitely has the bracer that Thorgarn gave as a gift to the group. But I think, it's probably like a tunic and an over jerkin, and he just wears the over jerkin with the pants and like the cloak. So he doesn't even have like the tunic on underneath it at all. So his, of course, tattooed bare arms are shown, even to such a fancy dinner. He just doesn't like, being constricted whenever he has to move. So I think right before he goes to leave, he stares at that warhammer above the fireplace for a long time. And then he moves towards the door to go, and then he stops and turns around, and he grabs Gerta and brings her along.
Excellent. Griveth, what about you?
So Griveth is taking his warm bath, and there's a little cup on the edge of the tub, and he's picking up cups of water, and he's intentionally, like, what he's intending is kind of just to wash himself off. But as the water kind of just sheets out of the cup onto his face, just the water's like the perfect warmth, and he almost has like a flashback, and he's remembering when the messenger of the goddess came to him and he's in this battle. He's on this battlefield, and there's just the dead around him. He thinks he's the last person in the world, and he just kind of curls up into a ball, and then he feels someone touch his forehead, and there's kind of water drips down his face, and this warm water, and something is removing the blood and the smudges from his face. And he looks up, and he sees this luminous angel, that he was in the darkest place that he could ever be, and then there's this luminous face looking down of just love and care, and suddenly he realizes he's been anointed, and that started. He remembers back when his journey started as paladin. He's never had any official training. He's never, he doesn't really even know what a paladin was. He's just, the power came into him, and then he's thinking about how the Dawnbringers helped him, in those early days of trying to figure out who he was, and his problems with channeling the power of the goddess, and his conflicting personality of, he's been just a soldier all his life, a basic soldier, and now he's something, he just thrust into this other thing, and looking up from the dark time when the thing possessed, the darkness possessed him, and he looked up and his friends were all around him, and he's, all these images are just flashing in his mind. He slowly gets out of the tub, and he looks at Sir Bradford's honor, and he puts it aside.
I need you to make me a wisdom saving throw when you grab Sir Bradford's honor.
Okay. Ooh. That's pretty good. Okay, I got a 24.
As you grab Sir Bradford's honor, you're hit with another flash. And in an instant, just for a split second, you're back in the grove below the sunless citadel. And you're holding Sir Bradford's honor, and it's that exact moment, as you touch it, it's that exact moment that you destroyed the Gothias tree. Just for a split second, you see that. And you hear the faintest voice, a lilting, feminine, elven voice that echoes in your mind that says, "You must undo what you have wrought. You must mend what you have rent." And that's it.
So, Griveth knows that someday he'll have to face that, and he has the knowledge that his friends will be with him. But for now, off to dinner. So he takes his shining white dragon armor is hanging on the rack provided, and he walks up, and he feels comfortable here, but it's hard to, he's a soldier, and it's like always a weapon. It's hard to just let go. So, but he lets go even after the vision, and puts Sir Bradford's honor on a hook with the armor, and then dons the clothes that have been left, and the clothes are just this purest white of a tunic, and it's almost like a vestment, and under the vestment is like just the faintest blue shimmery material that almost looks like moving water, like that there's a waterfall on his chest, where the tunic divides the blue cloth. And then in his arms, there's like kind of a blue underhang of cloth that's that same kind of bluish material, like the puffy sleeves. Um, it's almost like that same bluish material, and he finishes putting everything on, the belt, the tunic, and he heads off to meet his friends for dinner.
Cantriel.
Is the Lady Vantage still in there?
In your room?
Yeah, or has she left already?
I mean, we can take it from that moment where she...
Well, I'm just thinking, like, if she drops that, Cantriel's not gonna be like, "Oh, okay, thanks."
No. No, that's fine. We're pretty much kind of figuring out what happened during that hour. So absolutely, yes, she has just said to you, this was the room that your mother and father stayed in when they visited with me.
You knew my parents.
I knew all of you.
Had I been here before?
You have never visited my home. Only your parents did. But I visited your home when you were very young. Who do you think taught you Draconic?
It was you.
I was your tutor. And you would have memories of a woman that was with your family for a time that taught you some of what you know about Draconic lore, the Draconic language. She's the one who first uttered the word Ashardalon to you. And in your mind, it's like these two images suddenly just sort of go, and you can now see that it was looking exactly as she does now, the Lady Vantage.
Do you know what happened to them?
She walks over to a finely carved settee with these this blue sort of crushed velvet and gold embroidered cushions on it. She sits down and she just gently pats the seat next to her for you to sit.
I'd go and sit down.
I do know. And I think if the stories that have preceded your arrival in Saltmarsh about what the Dawnbringers and what you have done are even half as true as what I've heard, then I think you are ready to hear what happened. Your mother and your father, your brother and your sister, were all captured and murdered by dragon cultists of Ashardalon. It was only through my intervention that they did not know of your existence, or you would have been their primary target. I thought that I was protecting all of you when I hid you from them and their minds. But I'm afraid it was that very act that may have contributed to all of them being murdered.
Why me? Why me?
Your fate, your destiny, has always been intertwined with that of Ashardalon. Do you know of your ancestor, Dryada? Dryada was once the leader of a powerful band of elven druids. Many centuries ago, centuries and centuries, nearly a millennia ago, Ashardalon sought to rule these realms, take control of it for himself. He wanted to see all the land turn to ash around him and make it his dominion. But Dryada and her circle of druids fought hard against him. The cult had already risen up around him, even then, were spreading his lies and ruination around the land. In their most desperate moment in their battle with Ashardalon, Dryada herself transformed into a great silver dragon and tore Ashardalon's chest open, exposing his heart. They called upon the power of the gods and ripped that heart from his chest. In his dying breath, Ashardalon muttered the last words he could, some arcane incantation, and he vanished from this plane. That was over 850 years ago. The blood that flows through your veins, Cantriel, is the same blood that flowed through Dryada's veins. Ashardalon's cultists are rising in remote parts of the world. And I'm sorry to tell you this, but I'm afraid your very actions, you and the Dawnbringers, may have been instrumental in heralding his return. The words that have reached me from the far across the sea in Oakhurst of your actions before you even took upon the name Dawnbringers. Is it true that you destroyed the Gothias tree there?
Yes.
And it is gone.
That one's gone.
The Gothias tree, did you learn of what it was? How it came to be there?
Yes.
So you know of the vampire Gothias that had been staked to that very spot, and the tree grew up out of the stake. But did you know who Gothias was beyond the vampire? He was one of Ashardalon's chief lieutenants. And when you destroyed the Gothias tree, his very essence that had seeped into that tree and allowed it to grow and corrupt that place after you left, began to reconstitute itself. And in the months since you've been gone, Gothias has returned and has taken up residence in their old cultist temple, a place back across the sea where you are from, called the Nightfang Spire, where he guards Ashardalon's heart. And they are attempting to bring Ashardalon back from wherever he is. Ashardalon and his cultists wanted you, knowing that you are of their bloodline, that you are somehow marked as being the purest of that bloodline. They wanted you destroyed. And when I hid you from them, obscuring magically any sign of your existence, they thought I could wipe that bloodline out by removing your family. And for that, I can never apologize enough. But what I can do is prepare you and your friends to face the challenges that are coming to you. You have grown so much since last I knew you, Cantriel. But you have so much more growing to do. All of you. None of you can do it on your own. Your bow.
Yes.
It pleases me to see it in your hands.
You know then what it is already.
Of course I do, child. I made it.
You made the bow.
It was the least I could do after I learned what had happened to your family, and I was able to gather essences of their spirits and tie them to the draconic and elven runes that are emblazoned on the bow. It is up to you to complete the connections to the rest of your family, illuminate the rest of the runes. But several years ago, while I was away, unfortunately, my kobold servants were not paying close enough attention, and a very young, adolescent, petulant black dragon was able to steal from my hoard one of my most prized possessions. I can only assume that black dragon has since paid the price. At your hands, no doubt.
Quite literally.
Cantriel, are you ready for the challenge that awaits you? It is unfair, this mantle that has been thrust upon you. You have been given no choice in this matter, and I will not lie to you. It is not just your fate, it is not just the fate of your friends that relies on this. If Ashadalan is allowed to return, it will be ruination for the whole of the realms.
But it looks like I have to be, just as I've always been.
I'm not quite old enough to have known Dryada or her partner, Sullivan. I so wish I had. But I can only imagine that it is Dryada's spirit that drives you. Somebody fierce enough and strong enough to rip the heart from one of the greatest, most powerful worms in the world. I pray that that spirit is within all of you. And I will do what I must, what I can, to equip you to go forth with the task you must go forth with. I know this is a lot for you. We will meet with the others soon. You will have an opportunity to question your captor, and at your discretion, I will not reveal any of what we have spoken about. At your discretion, you may tell your companions what you are all up against and what you face. But I have more to reveal to each of them as well.
Not exactly surprised to hear that.
I've got a few surprises up my sleeve. take as much time as you need. Clean yourself. Dress. I understand that before you were assaulted, you had actually already eaten, so I will have the kobolds lay out an assortment of teas, coffee, ales, wines, and other liquors, and some desserts, and we will have a discussion.
Yes, I'll ready myself then.
She reaches her hand over and seems to almost hesitate. And then she gently places her hand on the back of your hand and looks at you with a sadness. And you can see that she still bears the burden of the responsibility of all that has happened to you. I shall see you soon. And she quickly, just like that, all of that burden is gone, and you just see that strong, confident, regal elven woman before you as she stands up and sort of smooths out the wrinkles, gives you a smile and a nod, and fairly glides out of the room. I'll give you a minute to process that while and you can describe how you dress when you show up at dinner.
Okay.
And we'll head over to Fig. How does Fig spend his hour before the kobolds show up?
I think that Fig, when the kobolds maybe come in, bringing in some of the before they come in, we see Fig is sitting on the ground cross-legged, and he has probably 6 or 7 books lying open in a circle around him, and he just draws his attention from one to the other to the other to the other and flips a page and goes back. It's almost like it's very systematic how he does it. It's almost like a typewriter where he just reads, and then flip back to the beginning, and then reads again. And surrounding him are these pillars of books. The shelves are almost empty with how many books that he's taken out and put beside him that he is reading. He's just trying to, and they range, I imagine, in all sorts of different topics, from history to cultures to different religions to the just the and like nature and biology and all of these different things. He's just kind of absorbing it all with this intensity.
Give me a investigation check.
Okay, that is a 22.
As you are flipping through all of these books, and I imagine every once in a while you get up and grab more books. It's one of those things where you have like you've hand selected from the plethora of books these particular books, but as you're looking at them, you keep glancing up, and another book catches your eye, and you go over and grab that one and add it to your pile. During one of these moments, you walk over and you grab a tome, and a scroll comes rolling out and drops on the floor at your feet. It's a larger scroll than usual, about 18 inches long, and it is sealed in a coppery looking wax seal, and the seal that is in the wax is one that you recognize. That combination of a C and an E, the symbol of Copernicus Embersum. Do you pick up and open this scroll?
Absolutely. I think first Fig would study and maybe run his hand along the seal of this and look at the agedness of the scroll before finally just breaking the seal and unfurling it.
As you begin to unroll it, the parchment and the drawings therein are pristine. It rolls out to about 24 inches. And the first thing you see as you're unrolling it is you're actually seeing the rightmost edge. And it looks familiar. You've seen this before. It is the original sketch showing a form very similar to yours, but having slightly more feminine features to it. And you see in Copernicus's neat writing below it, Figure 3, Archimedes. Knowing what you're going to find, you continue to unroll the scroll. And then you see a sketch, highly detailed, of yourself. And in that neat writing, Figure 2, Prometheus. In the previous version of this drawing, the first figure was scratched out. You have never seen this before. As you unroll it, you see a highly detailed mechanical version of Copernicus himself. And below it, it says, Figure 1, Copernicus.
I think that this is the first time that Fig has ever seen an image of his creator. I mean, he just learned his name not too long ago, so he's looking at this and he stares at it for a long time, just looking at the figure of the person who, you know, it might still be sketched and it might still be the mechanical version, but it is in the likeness he knows of his creator. And so he's looking at it for a very long time, and he'll like trace his fingers along the face of the sketch, and at the same time and then he lifts it up and he kind of touches his face in the same parts of where he had touched this drawing, just looking as if he was looking at a very foggy mirror, very cracked mirror.
When the time comes, do you change clothes? Do you attempt to enjoy a steam bath or anything like that? Or I didn't imagine Fig would be too keen to get into water, but I figured I would ask. Do you change your clothing at all?
So I imagine that the kobolds brought in maybe a few different outfits. Because Fig doesn't usually wear stuff like that. So maybe they brought in, you know, maybe 6 or 7 different outfits that he might be interested in or wear. And they each are, you know, they're very beautifully embroidered and they each have unique colors. And they set them out for one outfit 1, outfit 2, outfit 3, and then they leave. And then Fig kind of looks at these outfits. For a very long time, he ponders them. And then he begins to take one piece from one outfit and another piece from another outfit. And he begins to put them on. And I imagine there's this montage of him just trying on all these different outfits. And the more he tries them on, like the more fun he's having with it. I can imagine too, there's maybe even one point where he comes out with just this little loincloth on and he like poses in the mirror like Griveth. He does like the exact pose that Griveth was doing on the boat. And then he just kind of pauses and then just kind of shakes his head. And
I'm seeing a total like 80s movie, some kind of pop song playing as it's just the image montage keeps changing as Fig's in different poses and different clothing.
Eventually, Fig settles on probably a very garish outfit, as he just picked the colors that he liked the best, not if they went together or anything like that. So I imagine that he's wearing this vibrant turquoise vest. Underneath is this bright, maybe almost like a rosy color under like a shirt, and then these bright red pants, and he wears his coat over top, but then over top of that he wears this bright purple cape, and he wears these gloves. And if it wasn't for his face, he almost looks human. Like, you can't see any of his parts, his gears, or anything like that. He has everything buttoned up. I imagine that everything too is just gold trimmed, but in these weird patterns are mismatched. Everything is just wrong, but they represent just Fig just picked what he liked and what he thought looked the loveliest. And as he leaves, he kind of and he still has to put on his hat, his wizard's cap, before he heads out.
Wonderful. I love it. So all of you will find that the kobolds are delivering you to this grand dining hall around the same time. So you're all sort of seeing each other at the same moments. This incredible table is 30 feet long, solid oak, massive carved oak legs, and there are clustered on one side near the center, so that you can all sit together, are several ornate chairs. Arrayed across the table is a variety of desserts, several bottles of wine, liquors. There are carafes with steaming, rich-smelling liquid in them that is coffee. There are kettles of hot water and various teas. There are 2 full casks of kyr. And the kobolds lead you to the chairs. Cantriel, how are you dressed when you show up?
She would have taken her time to get ready, and her hair is actually pulled up, which is probably the first time that's ever really happened. And she's wearing this silver gown, but it's got this embroidery to it, also in silver thread. And if you were to take a close look at it, you'd see it was almost like this tree of life that sort of spans across the skirt itself. And in certain sections, it looks like bare branches, like winter trees. In other sections, you see cherry blossoms. And then it's a fully leafed tree in other sections of the branches. And finally, you see a section where, while there are some leaves stuck onto the branches, it's almost got this effect that as she moves, the iridescence of the thread makes it look like the leaves are falling off the branches. And it carries this greenish undertone to it that reflects the green of her eyes as well.
I imagine you would find as Cantriel moves and the various lanterns and firelight, you catch hints of that green. It's a sort of color shift, a iridescence. Yeah, sorry, I won't say it's not a color space. That, sorry, inside joke in the crafter community. It is a pattern that changes. It has an iridescence to it that the green seems to come through as she moves around. You are all led to the 5 chairs that are provided. On the other side of the table is a much larger, ornate chair with 3 other chairs arranged nearby. 2 of them are empty. Muriel, young half-elven woman, sits in one of the other chairs. The Lady Vantage enters moments after you do. You all look absolutely wonderful. I'm so pleased you were able to find suitable attire amongst what we offered you. Our Captain Virgil Dervish has escorted the young Hannah Rist back home this evening and will join us in the morning. We have a few things to discuss. Please, help yourselves. And there's a little bit, I imagine, as at your leisure, you may help yourself to any desserts, coffees, liquors, any beverages you would want. The kobolds are always making sure that you have exactly what you need. If it even looks like you are struggling to reach something, a kobold reaches out with, they have these like extendable rods that they use because they are quite small, that they can sort of reach out and just kind of pull things towards you. And they seem to be quite nimble with that. 2 kobolds tend to you, Talmud. And every once in a while you catch them sort of looking at you, when, like, out of the corner of your eye, you swear you're being stared at. And when you turn, they just seem to, for some reason, have an affinity towards you. Not in a creepy way, just kind of in that, like a dog that really takes a liking to you kind of way. It's the only crack you've seen in their otherwise professional demeanor. Fig, the Lady Vantage, you find that in the same way the kobolds are staring at Talmud, you find her looking at you. And she has a slight smile at the corner of her mouth. Figure 2 Prometheus. It's absolutely delightful what you have put together. It's an amazing ensemble, and very fitting for you to choose from amongst all of the offerings you were provided. I wholeheartedly approve. Fig, make me an insight check.
I think Fig would say, oh, thank you. And it might shock you to know that this is my first time ever putting together an outfit such as this. And I got a 14.
You're not exactly the best at discerning people's intentions when they are... You don't read social cues very well at all. Let alone body language and things like that. Anybody else that is watching this interaction, if you would like to roll an insight check, please do so. I suspect Cantriel, with that incredible perception, probably would catch this, but...
26.
Is anybody else taking note of this?
15.
Griveth or Talmud not paying attention?
I imagine that Talmud is kind of currently occupied with the attentions that the kobolds are giving him. He's keeping Gerta nearby.
Cantriel, Thorgarn, you don't pick up on so much other than the fact that maybe you're just sort of like looking at the two of them going, like you're trying to figure out what's going on here. Cantriel, you've noticed that she seems to always have her eyes drawn towards Fig. And in this moment, And maybe it's because of the way in which she opened up to you earlier, and you've seemed to have seen into her personality a bit more. You realize that the way she is looking at Fig is with adoration. Not in the way that somebody looks at somebody they are attracted to, but in the way a mother looks at a child. After a little bit, she says to all of you, "As I have said, you will all find solace, protection, and rest here under my roof. In the morning you will find yourselves completely and fully rested. You will need it. For things are going to begin moving much quicker than they have been for you Dawnbringers."
What things, and why do you know so much about us? I know it's a lot.
Thorgarn, I'm rather surprised it's taken you this long to pose that question before me.
Well, my mind is slightly preoccupied.
How much Kia have you had?
Not as much as my cousin.
It is true. I know much about each of you. Some I know more about. And her eyes very quickly, and I would imagine with her perception, only Cantriel catches this, as her eyes flick between Fig and Cantriel. Let me start with the one I know the least about. But I've learned much in the last few months. Griveth Langsmore, Paladin of Eldath. I must admit that much of your story is a mystery prior to your adventures in Oakhurst and at the Sunless Citadel. A couple of months ago, I met a young man, very eager, willing servant by the name of Baron, that was all too quick to sing your praises. He is quite your admirer, Griveth. He has even taken up worship of Eldath. It seems your influence carries much weight, which is why you must continue to guard how you represent yourself in Eldath to the world around you. I am pleased that Brother Matthias was able to attend to your situation. But eventually I did learn a little bit about you. You were quite impressive in your youth from what I've been able to find. And then you virtually disappeared for a while, made a name for yourself in some wars. But it seems you've really found your calling with this band of adventurers. In particular, since you've taken on the mantle of Dawnbringers. If Baron's stories are even partially true, I understand it was you who destroyed the Gothias tree, contributing to your own brief corruption, but nonetheless, as I said, you were able to get that taken care of. Is it true you were the one who destroyed the Gothias tree?
It is true, yes.
It was a very noble act, driven from a pure spirit that you did. Talmud Gadan, I see you carry your grandfather's maul with you. Gerta, I believe it's called.
Oh, you have heard of it. Yes, this is Gerta.
Do you know how Gerta got its name?
You know, I've never really heard the story, truthfully. It happened so long ago, I'm not really sure.
Gerda was a young maiden who caught the eye of two very young, short-bearded dwarves. Your grandfather and your Uncle Horm. And let's just say that she was very fond of playing the two of them against each other. And fear not, this was long before your grandfather met your grandmother. But in the end, that young maiden, Gerda, favored your grandfather. But alas, fate would have her leave him. So he chose to honor her memory by naming that mole after her. I must say I was quite flattered when he did that.
So just think, the next time that you're swinging that maul into some orc's face, that's your grandfather's girlfriend.
It's
Think about it.
not his grandfather, or rather, not his grandfather's girlfriend, but named in her honor.
But I'm sorry, I've had quite a bit of Kurgan already. You said that was a fun time?
What I said was I was quite flattered that he chose to name his mole after me.
Okay, see, there's the rub. You're you said a dwarven lass, and you
Actually, I did not say a dwarven lass. I said a young maiden. Your great-uncle Horm nor your grandfather would not want it be known that they were both smitten with an elven woman.
At this point, Cantriel is cracking up.
He kind of blusters.
I could totally tell that for a moment. I thought you were the only one that caught that.
Yeah, Talmud kind of Are you certain it was my granddad and great uncle Horn?
I've always been rather fond of dwarves, and I spent quite a bit of time along the Sword Coast, so maybe it wasn't me. Maybe I'm just humoring myself.
Well, this is very good, Kerrigan.
He's not going to remember this in the morning.
It's just probably for the best.
It's probably not the ale.
Thorgarn Spirit Cola.
Aye.
I know that there is much angst within you, much conflict. You spent a few years very angry, but it pleases me to learn that you are beginning to find your calling. Continue on this path you are on.
That is the plan.
While I can't claim that the blood of Moradin flows through your veins, though an honor that would be, I like to think that Moradin's blood flows like mithril through all dwarves. But your clan, Spirit Caller, did you know that your ancestors, going back a few generations, were primarily paladins and clerics?
I did not.
I knew of the Spirit Callers. I did not know any of them in particular. But I am pleased to hear that a dwarf of the clan Spirit Caller is following under the watchful eye and hammer of Moradin. and she glances at your bandaged arm and then shifts her gaze deliberately to your bracer with the Dawnbringer symbol. Bears the sigil of the Dawnbringers.
Well, Moradin is more active than most, and been fortunate enough to actually loosely be in his presence once.
Excuse me. For a second, I missed the last thing you said.
Oh, I said, loosely, I was in his presence once. And it is more active than other gods.
It was one of those things where I heard you and then I immediately lost as I was thinking of something else that's going on with this. And I was like, wait a minute. I think he just said something, not just narrated something. So I apologize for that.
Yeah, no worries.
It is obvious the mark of Moradin you wear, and you should wear it with pride.
I do.
Cantriel and I had opportunity when I showed her to her room to speak. I have known her family, known of her family for quite some time. So, I will reveal no surprises to you, Cantriel. And she there's an exchange of a look of knowing between the two of you that she's clearly leaving, as she promised, up to you to reveal what you will.
Oh, sure, you don't spread her nasty secrets around.
It's an elf thing, dwarf.
Really?
Figure to Prometheus.
Maybe you might have one too.
Starts already.
Figure 2 Prometheus. I must say you were the one that surprised me the most. For I never expected to see you here. And word of your being a part of the Dawnbringers only reached me barely a week before your arrival in Saltmarsh. And if my watchful gaze and informants prove to be true, you know something of your origin here, having recently met with the Raven at the Sharkfin Bridge, yes?
Yes, that is correct.
So you know of Copernicus, then? Your creator?
I know very little information about him as a person, but yes, I am aware of him.
At this, as she's talking to you, she gets up and she walks around the table and sort of stands. She kind of actually, what almost seems uncharacteristic for somebody who carries herself so elegantly. She sort of sits. She does that thing where she sort of leans into and half sits on the table edge near you, kind of sort of cocking one leg up. She reaches out a hand towards your face. She seems to be looking in through your eyes into you. I see so much of you in him. It cost him so much to create you. I fear you were the last good thing he did before he died.
Did you know him?
Copernicus Embasum was my mate. So, in a sense, you could say that I am almost like your mother. Though I had no part in your creation.
It is very fortunate that we have met after a few weeks of me being, sorry, after me being in the world and being helped by my friends in the various nuances of the of how humans speak. The metaphor may have been lost on me. Mother.
It is not a traditional parental lineage, to be sure. But I believe it is time to lay all the cards on the table. And she begins to walk back around to the side where her chair is. And the wall behind her is this massive blue curtain obscuring the wall. She steps around behind her chair. All of you, I have revealed that I have intimate knowledge of who you are. And with very little exception, again a glance in your direction, Cantriel, it was not I who brought you all together, or who set you on these paths. You found each other, through fate or destiny, whatever it may be. And I am going to become your patron of sorts. To show that you can absolutely, without fail, trust me. I'm going to reveal my secret to you. And as she's talking, she begins to step backwards. Because it is only through pure honesty that we can trust one another. As she grows and you see these massive wings unfurl behind her, and her elven form takes on the shimmering blue that translates and transitions into incredible bronze scaling, towering somewhere between 15 and 20 feet in height, sitting on haunches, her wings furled wide, and then coming to rest behind her. I am the Lady Vantage, and I pledge myself as patron protector of the Dawnbringers. Do you, Dawnbringers, accept my pledge?
Griveth leaps forward and says, and bows the knee and says, "We accept."
So I kind of take a moment to to basically take it all in. I don't think he was really expecting, like Ted might have been thinking dragon, but there was no way that Thorgarn was. So he's kind of in awe for a moment because we're clearly talking about a massive dragon here, right? This is no wormling, right?
This is no wormling. This is... You can tell by the coloration of her scales, this dragon is an ancient dragon.
So eventually he he gets out a squeak of a yes.
The massive. I said bronze, right?
Yes.
Because in my mind I keep interchanging brass and bronze, and I mean bronze.
I've got bronze written down.
Okay.
So.
The massive bronze head shifts towards you, Fig.
Lest it, or in the hopes that it eases your confusion some, Copernicus Embersom was himself a dragon. Copper in color. Do you accept my pledge? Figure 2, Prometheus.
Fig is looking just up and down, just taking everything in. And he takes out the scale of Copernicus that was in his brain mind thing. He takes it out and I have discovered over the time that I've been with these friends that I have, in fact, more relation to emotions and feelings than that of just simply a machine. Sometimes they are hard for me to comprehend or to explain, as I do not have a name for them yet. But I feel a strong sense of connection, but also a sense of duty. And I am as much in your debt as anything.
This massive bronze head actually lowers and easily stretches across the table towards you as you hold out this copper scale. And you see gigantic razor-sharp teeth as the lips curl back in a draconic smile. And you would notice at this closeness a wetness in the eyes as tears form in her eyes, seeing that scale. And very softly, as she is so close to you, she says,
You are taking your first steps towards understanding what it means to be alive. This was the gift that Copernicus gave to you.
and then she leans back.
Cantriel.
You're muted. Playing the part of Scotty tonight, it's V.
You hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Zoom keeps jumping microphones on me. Annoying. Clearly our lives have been intertwined for a while now. I think at this point it's best to keep in that path.
She nods in almost like a bow towards you.
Talmud Gedan, you are silent. What say you, dwarf?
It makes more sense now, knowing that you weren't really an elf. That makes so much more sense now. But I would be happy to have your patronage. And he kind of like, there's a dawn on his face as he kind of, that's why the rooms are so big.
Nothing slips past your watchful eyes, Talmud. Very well, Dawnbringers.
She turns her head and just slightly, and you hear,
Hiathirok Jindokal Angelicondrak.
in Cantriel, you hear in Draconic as she says, bring forth the gifts. You watch as her form recedes back to the familiar elven form. She demurely straightens her gown, turns her head a little bit as you see a sort of shimmer and shift of bronze scales across her face. I will tell you the rest of what is to come in the morning, because you are all still in need of much sleep and rest. And I do have gifts to bestow upon you, starting with, as I said, things will begin to move quickly in the morning. Captain Dervish will be joining us. In the morning, we shall dine on a hero's feast. And I will present you with gifts befitting my patronage. But first, I present you with a gift that is more than a token. It is a talisman, perhaps. Something that has been in my possession for so very long, and is how I knew that our fates were all tied together. 4 kobolds enter, carrying a case, a wooden case of mahogany inlaid with mithril. This case is about 4 feet long, a foot wide, 6 inches deep. And they place it on the table in front of the Lady Vantage. She opens the case, flipping open the 2 latches, and opens it so that you can see inside. Again, what is becoming a common theme with the Lady Vantage. Blue silk lines the interior of this box. And inside, though the box is nearly 4 feet long, you see towards one end of it an elegantly designed sword hilt. She reaches in and she grasps the hilt. She holds it in front of her face. A blade of pure radiant light emerges 3.5 feet up from the hilt. This sword has a name that was given to it long ago. This sword's name is Dawnbringer. That is where we are going to end tonight's session. V, I wanted to keep going. I could have kept on going, but it's already 11:30. We will decide next week who's going to take possession, though I have a suspicion who's going to take possession of Dawnbringer. But this is the actual Dawnbringer sword. And more will be revealed about it. Though I suspect some people in the audience and some of you players may have a little bit of knowledge of what the Dawnbringer is. And there will be more gifts. But I have a gift for all of you. You are all level 9 now. I think I accidentally tipped my hand a little earlier than I intended with the Draconic origin when I said that they stole the bow from her horde. That was just a little slip of the tongue. If you people watching in chat, if you could see our side chat as they're theorizing, in particular during the Cantriel discussion, that I think it was no surprise to any of the players themselves when the Lady Vantage revealed herself to be a bronze dragon. The only surprise there probably was the fact that she was bronze. But I hope everybody was caught off guard and surprised by all of the connections, in particular Cantriel's connection. Honestly, so I told the players before this session that I had been waiting since session 3 of this season for this meeting of them with Lady Vantage. But when we agreed to continue beyond that original 5-episode mini campaign that this was supposed to be some year and a half ago, and we decided we were going to continue playing this as an ongoing campaign, I took elements of what the characters had created of themselves and began weaving them in. And V made a choice of Cantriel back at level 1, and with the connections of the Sunless Citadel, that's where it was purely because V was the one that had the draconic choices for connections that Cantriel has this connection. So as a DM, this is one of the things where I've gone the longest from having a seed and an idea in a campaign to revealing it. I think, what do we figure? There was something like 45, 50 episodes in between to reveal something that came to me in the first few sessions. So, but yeah, and then just having fun with all of the connections between all of you and intertwining your fates. And but all of that comes, I don't want to say I'm taking credit for all of that, because all of that comes from you, the amazing players that have created such compelling, rich, and deep characters. I feed off of, what you create. And that's why I love this game and love you guys so much, is that we're crafting this incredible story together. You guys have just reached level 9 and are just getting started in your adventures. I'm so excited. This makes me think of, this is one of those moments that makes me think of the line in The Matrix that Dozer says to Neo the first time he puts him in the chair, and he's gonna start uploading training tapes to him, and he goes, Morpheus says we're not supposed to say anything, but if you're the chosen one, imagine. Something to that effect. And it's just that pure excitement of that Dozer has. That's how I feel. I'm like, we're just getting started, Dawnbringers. So this, I love this campaign. I love this so much. And I love seeing the reactions of you guys as these things were revealed. And actually I had intended that she was going to reveal everything about her connection with Cantriel at dinner. But of course Cantriel decided to, pull her aside and have that conversation in private. So that'll be up to Cantriel. But yeah, maybe she's you got some of her blood in you too, Talmud. You don't know.
Fig and Talmud can be siblings.
Fig and Talmud are related. I love it. All
It makes
right.
sense.
Well, I want to say a huge thank you to chat tonight. Chat was really popping. Thank you to everybody who stopped by. Huge thank you to all of the new followers. Thank you to Featherfall TT for the raid earlier. Huge thank you to Spike, of course, for the 10 gift subscriptions dropped on chat. Everybody who subscribed, cheered. I think it was actually Shadow of Dragons that cheered 500 bits for a domain die. We appreciate you all so much for going on this journey with us. And again, a tremendous thank you and lots of love to Scotty, V, Megan, Ted, and Jeremy, the Dawnbringers. This is going to be a great year for the Dawnbringers. I'm so excited about where we're going. So with that, we are going to end the stream, and we're going to end the stream the same way we end every stream. And you can say it with me if you want.
Mitchadors.